Welcome to this week's episode of Connecting the Dots. I'm so happy to be joined by Moritz Wessely. Moritz studied law for 4 years, knowing that he'd never practice. And then long COVID took him out, and doctors told him that chronic was his new baseline. He refused that and built the microbiome company that came out of his own recovery. Today, we're asking what your gut can reveal about how you feel, how you perform, and how you age, and where the evidence is strong enough to act on. Moritz, welcome.
Thank you so much for the invite, Jen.
So connect the dots for me. Take me back. How did you get from studying law to building microbiome therapies?
Sure. So I think for me, it actually started much earlier. I would say I was just
Okay.
always the curious kid, the one asking the annoying "yeah, but what if" questions.
Love those.
And I think that curiosity is just like a core character feature that like fueled me throughout my life. Originally, I wanted to do medicine. So my first job after high school actually was designing formulas for supplement companies because I wrote them was like, hey, what you're doing is like not as good as it could be. And they were like, you did better. So that's what I did. And yeah, med school didn't work out, but I was always like, I don't know, good with language. So I decided, hey, let's do law. And then I figured out, okay, actually I was in my second week or so of the first semester. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to be a lawyer. But the good thing about law in Germany is people do not really care what you do for the 4 years of law school, as long as you write like the bar exam in the end. And that more or less decides your professional future, which is brutal for most. For me, it was great because I was like, hey, I have 3 years to explore.
Yeah.
3 years to figure out what I'm actually really good at, what I'm really passionate about, and where I can maybe contribute and add my impact to the world. And for me, I discovered that was entrepreneurship, and it was always entrepreneurship at the intersection of like health and technology, like having a
Okay.
positive impact on people's lives with the things that I create or that I push forward. So my first startup actually was in psycho-oncology. So psychological support for breast cancer patients, becoming aware of like the massive care gap in psychological care for cancer patients due to like the breast cancer case of an acquaintance of mine, which for me just like triggered the question, okay, like how can we like help people at scale? And that's where I really did figure out, okay, like doing this feels great and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think that just laid the groundwork for everything before and afterwards.
Those are such wonderful skills, the curiosity and the perseverance, and obviously all of the critical thinking you learn from studying law. But if you're constantly looking for those gaps in opportunity where the dots haven't quite lined up and there's a business case for it, there's a lot of business to be found. So
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it is about business, but for me, it's like even like I think much more substantial. It's like this just like pure act of creation. It's
mhm.
it's a very similar feeling to when I create art, to when I play music, to when I don't know, dance or whatever. But it's always like that creative act. And entrepreneurship is, I think, like one avenue in which I'm able to live that, which I think is just very cool. It feels always very alive to me.
Looking at entrepreneurship as a channel of creation. I think that this is really cool. And I looked at your website, and you definitely have this very deep artistic, philosophical side of you, which I think is really important. I've had, close to 25 years on the business side of things, and I've always known deep inside myself that I'm a creative. And as I've leaned into that more and I've had more time to kind of nurture that part, it enriches the entrepreneurship so deeply because I've never heard it or I've never connected it as a channel for creativity as clearly as you put it. I think that's really powerful. It's just one avenue to express the channel of yourself.
Yeah, and I think like there are many different avenues and channels to entrepreneurship, or what entrepreneurship can resemble. I'm actually It's funny because you brought up I'm working on like an essay about like the distinction between like rebels and radicals, and I feel like being a rebel has become kind of chic, kind of cool because it made entrepreneurship punk. But I
Mhm.
think also with too many rebels, you have like too many revolutions and too many things like go wrong, and you have like design by destruction, not necessarily by evolution, by evolving to the next stage. And I think it's now slowly it's the time of the radicals, the ones who are not necessarily pushing against something, but are like walking forward for the future that's where they already see the potential in now, and they want to bring it into being. So I think, yeah. And the radical is always like the one that has that true, deep, creative calling. So
In connection with it. And I think that there's definitely a need for destruction, but there's also a need for systems and iteration. Like you have to have a foundation to build on. So what we're speaking about today is really what you've built in terms of understanding and optimizing the microbiome. So as with many people, your own health was a turning point for you, as I understand, in building Precision Microbiome. So you've got two companies, Precision Microbiome and Ravān. So maybe lead us into
yeah,
those two
sure.
and tell us the difference.
Yeah, sure. So just for clarification, so Precision Biome is like the company, and
Hmm.
Ravān is now our newest D2C brand. So
Ha.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly,
Thank
but
you.
it's like it's one company. So sure, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, the journey for me was a very personal one. I mean, shortly after the bar exam, I first got COVID, like the second or third time, whatever, and that like spiraled into like severe long COVID from being a marathon runner, doing triathlons, running a nationwide NGO, working a side job next to preparing for the bar exam, to feeling like an asthma patient, barely able to leave the house in 1 month or less. It was a very, very miserable time. It was like torture in some way.
How long was it? How
Like
long were you?
in full, like I would say like 1.5 years, a bit more.
Wow.
And I mean, of course, like it's very uncomfortable. It's like a mix of panic, it's a mix of frustration. Like you're bumping your head against the wall, and everybody just tells you, hey, like it's chronic, you have to learn to live with it, just like take it a bit slower. And you're like, no, why should I? Why should I
Hmm.
accept that this state is now the new baseline? I'm like, I was never like, I never believed in that in some way. I always felt like, hey, there must be a different answer than just accept it. And I mean, I tried everything. I threw everything at it, including the kitchen sink. So from naturopathic treatment to like standard mainstream approaches to like ketamine infusions, and nothing really brought me further. So after like these 1.5 years and trying all these therapies, I was frustrated. I was, yeah, just like, okay, what else is left for me? And that by like sheer lucky accident, more or less, I became aware of like the gut microbiome, mostly due to
Hmm.
like the foundational work and research of one of our scientific devices.
Hmm.
And yeah, just started to explore that field for myself, and figured out, okay, like actually the gut microbiome has like a huge influence on overall physiology.
Sure.
It plays a cofactor, if not even like a clear trigger factor in like up to 80 to 85% of all chronic diseases. And that got me interested. And then I put that put that interest and the curiosity to work, I would say, to like build up first a system to heal myself. And for the first time, like as mentioned, for the first time in like the past 1.5 years, I felt progress. Just
Okay.
embarking on a protocol, like rapid progress. And like I think it was like 4 or 5 months later, I was like volunteering at a music festival, just like dancing through the night. Everybody was like, "Hey, Moritz, how come you're like so energized? What is it you're taking? I want to have that too." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm completely sober. I'm just like very high and energetic by the music at the moment." And I think in that very moment, I was like, "Hey, like this chapter, it's over for good."
Yeah.
And then, I mean, as mentioned, I have that entrepreneurial mind. I have that like creative spirit. So I was like, in some way, I was lucky because I found my solution. I never gave up. I never believed the people that were like, hey, like this, you have to accept it. I always was like, hey, like there has to be another way. But for 400 million people or more, people who suffer from long COVID, people who suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome, this is sadly not the reality, because there is no mainstream medicine answer. I mean, we speak about sometimes like 17-year-olds who have been professional athletes before, and who since like 1 year just lying in a dark room, sleeping for 20 hours a day, and have to be fed by their parents with parental nutrition. It's like, it's an abysmal state. And
Yeah.
that was when I was okay, like if nobody else is doing it, I want to, like with Precision Biome, I want us to be the first company who brings a truly curative treatment for long COVID chronic fatigue syndrome to the market, to help all these people get back into life as I was able to experience it. Yeah.
So I think it's so strong that you didn't accept the diagnosis as your fate. And it's also kind of crazy. Like COVID was brand new, and then all of a sudden, long COVID became like this diagnosis that was going to essentially be a life sentence of
Yeah.
fatigue and misery.
But I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, Long COVID is, I would say, like old wine in new bottles. I mean, we had chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalitis before that. It's like a disease that
A
we have like
catch-all.
first medical records in like the 1960s. So post-viral or post-infectious fatigue syndrome is a thing that existed for a long time, where researchers, patients have like just been banging their head against the wall without like finding a solution. And now naming it long COVID, which is like basically exactly the same syndrome, just like a different trigger or like a
New
very
label.
specified trigger, freed up research money, which by now we see is drying out again because, again, the people are not finding a solution. So we see the same thing happening that happened with myalgic encephalitis, that happened with Gulper syndrome, that happened with chronic fatigue syndrome, that in the end is like research money runs out. No researcher wants to go into that field anymore because, I mean, we know academia, it's publish or perish. If you only are able to report no findings, then you certainly won't get published. So it's the patients on their own again. And that's why I'm like, okay, like there needs to be a better answer.
What did you do when you started going down the rabbit hole of healing your microbiome? Like, what were the actions that you were taking? What were you testing?
So, I mean, also here in some way I was privileged, because if I've seen further, it's only because I was standing on the shoulders of giants. So like one of our scientific advisors, he was a former Microsoft engineer, worked for over like 50 years on developing complex AI systems. But he also had like a personal history of 10 years of chronic fatigue syndrome. And his wife had severe blood strain, and that motivated his own research. And just like me, he became aware of the gut microbiome and just started to develop algorithms for analyzing it, and then also for like simulating microbiome behavior and optimizing it. And that's exactly the thing with the gut microbiome. It is as individual as your fingerprint. So there basically only one person who runs around with that microbiotic makeup as you, and that is you. I mean, even amongst family members who share the same genes, who share the same lifestyle, who share the same location, and also like the same ancestry, we see like overlap of like microbiota by 5% at best. For like comparison, our DNA has like 99% overlap with everyone on the planet. So you got microbiome much more than your DNA and your genetic code. Truly is like the most personal system you have, and it's also the one that in the end, to some extent, even more than epigenetics, like covers all that you are, which sometimes leads you down the philosophical question: how much are we actually human, like rationally acting human agents? How much are we maybe just like emergent phenomenon of bacteria soup doing its thing? But I mean, I don't care. I have a fun experience doing it, being that matches for bacteria. But yeah, so that is like where I was like just able to base my own recovery protocol on, which in the end consisted of like testing of the gut microbiome with a special testing modality, then plugging all of that data into like the algorithms that our scientific advisor developed over long years of research that we then, as Precision Biome, took and developed further. And then based on that, receiving basically a personalized protocol of what to eat, what pharmaceutics to take, what prebiotics to use, what probiotics to use, that very specifically and individually modulated the ratio of different bacteria in my gut, like thousands and thousands of different bacteria, and restoring my gut back to like an individual balance for me.
And how long did this process take?
I mean, that is, I think, really the cool thing, because I mean, as mentioned, I saw the first positive results, just like having my energy, having my clarity after like 3 to 4 weeks into the process.
Wow.
To really make a microbiome resilient, stable in that new balanced state in the long run, we normally recommend doing like a 1-year course if you really have like a severe chronic issue. But then it also stays stable in like up to 2 years follow-up. And that I think is amazing, because the gut microbiome is, as it affects so many things, it's like one of the most resilient systems in our body that we have. Like normally it's like very resilient against change, which is good. But sometimes, and this is especially true for people who experience like something like post-viral or post-infectious fatigue, it is not able to bounce back, because like every infection just like puts a little dent in your microbiome. Normally, like,
down.
But the problem is like when it stays in that sink and then basically stabilizes in a new state of imbalance, that's when
new normal.
That's when the issues arise. And then the goal is, of course, like getting you back to like a more balanced, to a more stable baseline for you, and also getting you really, really resilient in that new briefed more balanced state.
And again, for people who don't have deep backgrounds in microbiome, what's the difference between gut health and microbiome health, or your microbiome?
Yeah.
How do they interconnect?
Sure. So we can definitely also come to that in a bit more detail later. But I think like I wouldn't say like I mean, gut health is quite of an ambiguous term. I would say
Okay.
digestive health
Okay.
and microbiome health, because most people think about their microbiome, if they think about it at all, of course, as something related to digestion, and that, of course, is like a large task and like exercise the microbiome performs on like a continuous daily basis, digesting
Sure.
foods, like breaking up like the cell matrices, so all the stuff from the food that we eat can actually like get into our system. But also our gut microbiome is like the most important like training ground for our immune system. Our gut microbiome, for example, and the gut bacteria are very, very important for proliferating T regulatory cells, which are like special T cells, so cells in the immune system that help to overall regulate the immune system, making sure that it doesn't overreact. Our gut, like over 92% of our serotonin or 60% of our dopamine is produced in the gut. The gut
Hmm.
and the brain via the vagal nerve are in like a constant crosstalk. So what happens in the gut influences the brain. Brain neurotransmitters again influence the gut microbiome function. So to a large extent, it is a part of our personality, and I wouldn't even say it's like the second brain, as some people term it. I would say like probably it's like something like the first brain almost, and the brain might, to some extent, just be like a receiver, like a satellite, while the microbiome
Co-pilot.
is the
Yeah.
ground. Yeah. While the microbiome is the ground station. So it is at the core of a lot of things that make us human and make us able to just like move through the world.
So when you were able to make this connection of, hey, maybe I need to address my microbiome, it was really like the mother lode of the change that you needed to make. How did your lifestyle change? Like you had a personalized protocol that was provided to you based on your initial tests. But like what was the gap between what you were doing then and what you started doing to heal yourself?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, people with chronic diseases mostly have a lifestyle that could be described as orthorexia. So they already optimized everything, and still
Hmm.
like it's not going forward. So they follow like every health tip, they eat probably super clean, they take all the supplements,
Hmm.
and still are moving forward. And the thing what we're doing is we're not doing like a lifestyle makeover. Yeah, we're not being
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, maybe I don't know, eat a rainbow, whatever. But we really figuring out, okay, what are the substances that very specifically for your individual gut now modulate the ratio of your gut bacteria back to a more balanced state. And we use them basically as therapeutics, or like as like therapeutic agents that we introduce in your gut microbiome to specifically shift the ratio of different bacteria. So increasing the growth of some bacteria while decreasing the growth of other bacteria. And that's how we use them. It's not like a standard nutrition protocol where we'd be like, hey, here's your meal plan or whatever. It's like specific substances that you include in your daily nutrition. And these substances can be like food stuff you get in the supermarket. These substances can be like certain like herbal extracts. These substances can be probiotics, so different bacterial strains. This can be like different fibers that act on the growth of certain bacteria. And we introduce them specifically based on your like baseline and on
Hmm.
the simulation we run to figure out, hey, how can we change your baseline for the better?
And how do you know that? Like when you say that everybody's got this individual thumbprint microbiome, it's completely unique. And then you have a baseline measurement. And then what does good look like? How do you know what good looks like compared to the baseline?
Sure. So basically that's what we developed our AI system for, that we
Okay.
like developed over like on running it on over 10,000 microbiome samples. And what it allows us to do is like first of all by like different proprietary algorithms to figure out, okay, what are like the definite outliers in your data set. So what are the bacteria that are much too high or much too low? And
Hmm.
then after we identify that, we basically run a simulation against our core database of our like 100,000 clinical facts, just figuring out how would your microbiome react if we introduce like this substance or that substance to it. It's in the end like a huge matrix over like 70 million data points.
Sure.
And this, as a result, then we get like basically the answer that allows us to know, okay, like this is what you need to do to reduce your outliers and to get your microbiome back into an equilibrium where it's able to outregulate itself. Because the thing is like your microbiome is always like fluctuating, but if you're off baseline, it fluctuates like around the wrong baseline. And our goal is like to get your system back into a state where it's really able to regulate itself and being stable in the new equilibrium.
And so your journey was to get to basically a year's worth of protocol and then you hit some sort of stable equilibrium. So what does your maintenance look like?
That's the cool thing. When your microbiome is resilient, you don't have to have any special maintenance. I mean, I eat fairly healthy, I would say, because I just enjoy fresh food. I like to cook for myself. don't feel like specifically drawn to like any, I don't know, convenience food.
Yep.
I
Yep.
just don't think it tastes good. Yeah. I would
Hmm.
say I have a like fairly healthy lifestyle. I just like to exercise, to move my body.
Hmm.
But so far, I mean, I don't take any specific supplements. I, yeah, I would say just ticking the standard boxes, but also I'm not like super meticulous, because that's the thing. I mean, like if you have to like, I don't know, go through like a 50-step protocol every day to feel somewhat okay, you're still not healthy,
Well,
because
yeah.
you just
Then you
keep
go to
up the
Brian
posture.
Johnson.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
just keeping up the posture. Yeah. I think like Brian Johnson might be something different, but if you take like 50 supplements to like cover all your imbalances, your system is still off balance, because it's not able to out of itself like endogenously regulate itself. And that is like our goal, where we like both with Precision Biome for like on the patient side, but also for Ravān for like the consumer side. That's our goal, where we want to get our clients to get their system back into a state where it's able to regulate itself. And regulating itself means coping with everything life throws at you. Yeah, the good things and the stressful things. Yeah, just being fine with like just having a relaxed week where like nothing special comes up, but also coping with like a week where, I don't know, you have a lot of meetings and something unexpected happens, something breaks down that needs fixing. Or
Yeah.
also just, I don't know, going to the club and like dancing for 12, 40, 15 hours and having a great time
Yeah.
doing it, and not being
Yeah.
wasted the week after, but maybe sleeping a bit longer on Monday and then be able to go into it full swing again.
And
That's
then you're
what
back.
living life actually means for me. And that's what also we unlock for our clients.
So, can you take me through the evolution of Precision Biome? It obviously started with you and your partnership, but where is it now? How is it built? What are clients seeing? Take me through the journey.
Sure. So, I mean, the thing is about building a microbiome company, or just about like the field of microbiome research. As mentioned, there's like no single expert with a final answer. There's no agreed ground truth. I mean, we all agree on the gut microbiome is super, super important. We all agree on that it like influences all these different like downstream pathways, all these different systems, and there's like constant crosstalk. I mean, just like as a figure, the number of enteric neurons. So neurons like going from your whole digestive tract to the rest of your body and back is approximately the same number as you have neurons in your spinal cord. So there's like a huge crosstalk going on. And by now, every expert you will speak like will be okay. Like the gut microbiome is the next big frontier in medicine, especially like in personalized medicine. But exactly how the frontier looks like, or how are we expected to reach it, that's where nobody's sure. So for me, the goal was not to find like the number one professor in microbiology, or like to find the number one expert in microbiome sciences. For me, the goal was like, because after all, we treat the microbiome as like a data problem, as a mathematical modeling problem. So I was like, hey, let's find like the best statisticians, let's find like the best mathematical modelers and AI experts, and use their tools to tackle that problem, to tackle that challenge, to fuel that discovery process. And that's
Hmm.
the foundation that we build Precision Biome on, because the cool thing is, if there is no ground truth, there are dogmas, there are beliefs, and we see in the history and evolution of microbiome sciences and research, every belief and every dogma has like a lifetime of around like 5 to 10 years, and then it's overcome by something new.
Okay.
But what we do is normally we like approach we leverage like a systems thinking approach. For us, the microbiome is just in the end just like one more data problem, and we look at the whole system in total and figure out, okay, what does the data, what do the numbers, what do the ratios of all the bacteria, given all these statistical instruments we can apply to them, what message do they send us? And that is basically, I would say, like our frame of mind, how we approach it, and how we're able to make really good progress just by treating that problem in a very creative way, not sticking to like any dogma or school of thought, but just being like, what methods are effective, and then like figuring out which methods are effective, and then applying them at scale.
I mean, your data becomes the dogma, right? In the end,
Uh,
your outcomes become the conclusions that you
okay,
draw.
yeah. I mean that definitely. I mean, and that's also always what we optimize for. It's not always about like having like a fancy academic explanation. Is it okay? Does this method allow us to derive insights, which in the end resolve themselves in client value, meaning
Hmm.
more energy, less symptoms, better sleep, whatever the mark is that we're looking for.
Okay, that's a really cool way of approaching the business, because when the science is lagging, you're basically creating the data set for the science in the future, or the science of the future. And then like how have you organized the company operationally? Like where are you operating? Who are your clients at the moment? Like what does the business of precision biome look like?
Sure. I mean, the company is based in Germany, like registered,
Hmm.
or like the manufacturing of like the supplements and probiotics also is located in Germany. Our lab sits near London because, to be honest, that was the only lab we were able to identify over like a multi-month process that was able to do the sequencing for us in the like according to like the quality and the minimum standard that we require and we
Hmm.
request from our partners. But the cool thing is we can serve clients wherever like a shipping provider delivers. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if you're sitting like I don't know in Berlin or in Paris or on I don't know in Bali. As long as there's DHL or UPS, we can serve you, which is pretty cool. But yeah, like just from like the whole genesis, I mean, Precision Biome is the very long shot, as mentioned. Like we are on our way to be the first company that introduces a curative treatment for long COVID chronic fatigue syndrome into the market, and that is like a multi-year and probably also like multi-million dollar process with studies, with medical regulation, with further R&D, and so on and so on. Ravān is like the very immediate venture that we are now operating at the moment, because in the like first few months of like starting Precision Biome, I got like approached by like top athletes, by CEOs who were just like interested in what we're doing in our technology. Because normally, of course, these are the people who always like are looking for like the next ad and
The
optimize.
optimizers, yeah.
Yeah. And I was actually quite surprised because these people, they had like unusually strong foundations. You know, they optimized their sleep, they optimized their nutrition, they optimized their supplementation, their training. So on paper, everything was like 10 of
Good.
the 10 of 10 stars. Despite like almost like every third person reported they were hitting a ceiling. They reported burnout. They reported like energy crashes in the afternoon only to be like coped with by drinking like 5 espressi, which then caused
Hmm.
like sleep issues afterwards. They
Yep.
reported like low mood. They reported like lots of focus, especially in stressful periods. That was like, I mean, how can it be that these people are basically like in the hamster wheel of self-optimization, but still everything that they do, they only like get like a 75% outcome at best. And what I was then really astonished when we tested them with our technology and like running their data through our AI was that like almost every one of these people had like chronic gut microbiome imbalances they weren't even aware about, because for most people, these, as we just like figured out earlier, these gut microbiome imbalances did not show up as digestive issues. They showed up as all the symptoms I just mentioned, as like unrefreshed sleep, as brain fog, as like tiredness, as like loss of energy. And in the end, like the root of that was sitting in their gut, completely unaware and out of sight. And these people, they did the blood test, you know, they did like their performance tests, but they never really looked at their gut, and they never looked at their gut with our technology. So, and as we were able then to uncover it and like onboarded them on the Personalises protocols, again, these people experience like rapid improvements, sometimes as quick as like 3 to 4 weeks. I mean, we worked together with like that like high-end professional soccer player in Germany, and like he was calling me, was like, "Hey, Morris, this is this sick. I thought I had a good sleep. Now I realize how much more refreshing my sleep and waking up actually can be. For the first time in years, I actually like wake up and be like, hey, this is great. Let's
Yeah.
go." Or for example, we worked together with that celebrity personal trainer, and like, I think it was like 4 in the afternoon or so, and suddenly get like a WhatsApp text from him. We're like, "Hey, Morris, this sick." Because normally it was a guy, you know, he was like very dependent on coffee. He woke up like 5:36, and then basically like first route was to the coffee machine. And
Uh-huh.
he just had realized that it was afternoon and he didn't drink any coffee today because he completely forgot about it, because he had this energy, had that focus again without like relying on caffeine. And that's, I think, is the really cool thing. What got me just like super hooked to be like, hey, it's really, you can unlock these experiences for people who already have been on a journey for such a long time,
Hmm.
in some way like allowing the system to regulate itself again without like the quick fix, without like stacking more on top of a already like very very shaky stack, but
Yeah.
helping the system to really figure out and solidify its true baseline again.
I mean, to me, when you're talking about people who are already at a certain level of health awareness, like super proactive, and they're testing with imbalances, like what does that mean for the general population? Like, I think that that's sort of the the rhetorical answer, but if you've got the people who are already doing the right things with air quotes, how do you know what right things are for you when you don't have that deep hyper personal data? And that's where, I'm just thinking about how many products are on the market for gut health. And when you're saying that this is your most personal system, like this is
Yeah.
the most
Yeah,
unique
yeah,
system.
you have to make it personal.
Yeah.
In some ways, also, it's almost like a homage to your body, because it's about honoring your body. It's about honoring the individuality that you are and that you bring into this world. So you shouldn't treat it like as like a cookie cutter approach. But yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, like, it is almost insane. By now, almost every second person globally lives with a chronic disease. I mean, it is completely like almost ridiculous. Yeah, that so many people to some extent don't have a fulfilled life or have the potential of fulfillment they can find life just like cut down. I mean, for the high performers and for the top athletes, there's actually like a pretty straightforward explanation, because we know by the studies, by the science, that chronic stress and chronic cortisol influx is the number one microbiome killer. Even if you do everything right, if you're constantly in that stress cycle, I told you about like the gut brain connection and the vagal
Mhm.
nerve, your gut microbiome deteriorates over time and breaks down. So it's a bit like death by a thousand paper cuts. You can do it for some time, but if you add enough cuts, at some point the system's like, yeah, stop.
Yeah.
So for these people, it wasn't just about it wasn't necessarily like about doing anything like wrong in matters of like nutrition or whatever. It was more about like the overall pressure they put on their body was overreaching, and after a time, the system wasn't able to recover, wasn't really able to recover that stress anymore. So yeah.
But the results, they're very happy, and you're very happy to hear them, it sounds like.
Yeah, because I mean, also, and maybe that's where like the philosopher in me breaks through again. We're so obsessed with optimization. We're so obsessed about running faster, recovering quicker, bringing more output, more output, more output. And in some way, the question is like all of these things: running faster, sleeping better, performing quicker, regenerating better. In some way, they're means to an end for me, and means to the end of like living a fulfilled life, of living a life in flow, of
Sure.
knowing every day that what you're doing is aligned with your purpose, and you have all the resources and tools at your disposal to follow your purpose to the fullest and give that life your all. And in the end, that is what we're enabling people to do in the end. It's not just about, I don't know, having your sleep score improving by like one or two levels. It's not about like maybe getting out a few more reps or like running a bit faster. It's really about getting into your flow and getting fully aligned with your purpose again. That's also like what that one soccer player reported, that for the first time in years, he actually enjoyed going into training again. And that was a person who went into soccer at a very, very young age because he was passionate. It was his life and he was very good at it. But also over time, it became his duty, and he did it
Mhm.
because he had to do it, not because he loved to do it. And also because he noticed over time was like the toll he put in his body was causing his body to break down. And that is it's not a unique story. I think it's the story of many, many high performing individuals who are motivated by always reaching for the next frontier, of always like climbing next summit because they want to see further, which is beautiful because these trailblazers, they're the ones who leading the way, who make path on uncharted territory. But at the same time, for many, this also means sacrificing their health in the long run, experiencing burnout, sometimes multiple times. And I'm like, hey, if there's another way, let's go for it.
Yeah. You're taking some of the hustle and grind culture, and you're giving them the link back to, and why are you doing this in the first place? Like, what's the reason underneath your hustle and grind? And I think, when your quality of life improves, then you can lean into the things that you were probably missing before, which is really enjoying, savoring, being present. And that, like, this is why we're here. We're not an output. It's a connection, meaning, experience. I think that you continually link back to that, but that's so important because I think we don't spend enough time talking about it because it's harder to quantify.
It is. And in some way, I mean, of course, we're not like the all around system retreat, whatever, restoring your purpose. But for some people, we're able to like, give them that puzzle piece that their system was missing.
Yeah. What does the process look like? So if I wanted to get started with Ravān, what would happen? How would I get started? What would that look like for me?
Sure. So, I mean, as already outlined, the tech behind is like super complicated. Our goal is
Hmm.
also with the product to make that super complicated tech and process super convenient for the user. So
Hmm.
everything, as mentioned, starts with the testing. So
Hmm.
you get sent one of our test kits.
Hmm.
The sample matter is a stool sample. So you just
Hmm.
like take it at home, or put it in a specialized sample tube. Then you either arrange for a pickup from your home, or you receive like a return label where you can drop it off at the next pickup at the next location. It goes directly via Express in our specialized lab. There we run like the testing on it to extract like all the bacterial DNA, figuring out what is the composition of the bacteria in the sample, and then all of the data up to 20 gigabytes gets crunched by our AI algorithms and runs through that simulation program. And in the end, we then get like a very detailed like list of substance for you to increase in your nutrition daily intake and substance to avoid. And based on that, we manufacture for you individually your supplements and your personalized pre and probiotics. So a combination of different bacterial strains and different fibers.
Hmm.
And alongside, we train an AI agent on all your data that lives on your smartphone. And at every step along the day can help you make the right choices. For example, you can be, hey, I want like a healthy breakfast recipe. And based on all your data, based on the substances you should increase, it gives you like a recipe. You can be like, oh, I'm more the savory type. Give me something different. It switches that. Or imagine you're sitting in restaurants. You have like the 20 dishes to choose from. You're like, okay,
Scan the menu.
yeah, you just like take a picture, a snapshot of the menu in like 1 to 2 seconds, you have exactly the right answer, what to eat to fuel your microbiome, to get it back into balance and to get you into flow state.
That part is fantastic. The how is fantastic because I think that's the gap in many programs is like, how do I get an answer now and work with what I have in the moment rather than a rigid protocol that someone has come up with many
Yeah.
years
I
ago.
mean, let's be honest. I mean, like our MVP was that we provided people with like, just like a PDF of like substance to take and substance to avoid. The problem is like, especially like with people who have like a very stressful schedule, it is hard to keep up and it's hard to like keep it in mind. So that's
Yeah.
also what we're like, hey, there's an easier and more convenient way for our users to just like follow their protocols, and that is via the AI agent.
And I mean, so I went through a period where I did nutrition deficiency testing. I actually do still regularly twice a year check my levels of nutrients just to inform my supplements. But my husband did it at the same time. And of course we had different requirements and different dietary needs. And then that adds a whole other layer of complexity. Like if you're living in a
Yeah, yeah,
household sharing a kitchen and you're like, okay, I can eat beets, but you can't eat beets. The fact that it answers for you and can probably make some accommodations, like this is the beauty of AI, is like here's the sweet spot middle ground, something that you can both eat when you're in a household and someone's not cooking your meals for you. It becomes a very real challenge to address.
yeah, and that's
So,
like one of the main challenges we solve for our customer to make it really easy and convenient.
like I've always been a huge nerd about nutrition and I coached it for a number of years, but I think like the when you're talking about stress, you make at least 300 nutritional choices over the course of the day. So if you think
Really?
about that yeah, well you're talking about like micro stressors and cortisol
Yeah.
and how important that becomes. But of course, like high performers take it super seriously as well. So like they're like
Yes,
becoming
you
even
add
more
meta stress
controlled.
on the stress, and then that meta stress causes more stress because you're stressing yourself out, and then you're thinking about stressing yourself out. Think about that.
It yeah, it just continues to spiral. So of course the next question is like what is this process going to cost me? So there's an initial process and then a 1 year trajectory. Like what does someone need to budget to enter this path?
Sure. I mean, so we have like a baseline price, which we're definitely like more like in the premium sector, I would say,
Of
mostly
course.
driven to like the very expensive tech and testing.
Hmm.
And then if someone after like the first 3 months, because it's always like scheduled like 3 month cycles, because after 3 months
Hmm.
we schedule like a retest due to the fact that as we're specifically influencing the gut microbiome in like such a targeted and specified way, we need to recheck to see that we don't overshoot. And based on like that retesting, we then also completely adjust the protocol. So you get a new set of supplements, you get a new set of recommendations. And if then somebody after like the first unit decides to embark on like the full year protocol, depending on individual liking. So we have customers using it like continuously, basically as their baseline and insurance. We have people using like once a year to just like give them like a boost, mostly like in the spring after like winter and when it's ready to get your beach body. And yeah, so I'm very happy to like share pricing, also links to our website afterward, and there people can look into it.
Figure out what works.
Exactly. And also people can always like book a consultation with me or one of our team, because for us it's always like also we want to figure out, hey, what are actually your goals, and is Ravān something where we can support you with? So as mentioned, it's your microbiome is the most personal system, and we provide the most personal optimization program for it. So we also
it's
always
hyper personalized.
Before you start, we're always checking in: are we the right solution for what you're seeking, to really make sure that you get the most out of it. But maybe another thing that because we already like started with it, that most people are probably not familiar with, is the whole like gut testing industry, because gut test doesn't equal gut test. There are like different testing modalities, and then you have like different labs that perform the same testing modality with very, very different quality standards. So the most common approaches are like 16S testing and shotgun metagenomic sequencing. And then you have like also a few labs that do like a quantitative assay of a few target species. In my opinion, it's more rarer and also like definitely less useful in a D2C context beyond like clinical microbiology. The problem with a 16S is that it captures like far fewer species. So you only get like a few hundred bacteria back with a very, very low accuracy. So it's like a bit of like hit or miss if this bacterium actually is present, or is it just like a hallucination of the process. With shotgun sequencing, you have like the benefit that you capture like thousands of species with like a super high accuracy and also lower error rate. Here's the only problem in the end, the lab choice. And that's also why it took for us, like it was really a quest to find like the good lab, because blood testing operates like within audited standards. Yeah, this is like the standard that every lab has to perform against, and that they're also like tested and validated against. Direct to consumer microbiome testing is a bit of a wild west. It's like a very complicated or not complicated, but complex and multi-step biotechnological process where a lot of things can go wrong and a lot of errors can be introduced. And I mean, even to that extent that when you send the same sample to the most labs 5 times, you get back 5 different answers that are sometimes so differing with each other that you can't even tell it's from the same person. So that was also for us the thing, like before we think about how we analyze their data, we have to be super sure that the data actually like
the data quality
mirror what is going on in the person's gut. And then when you have that figured out, the next question of course is like, what does the composition mean? What does the long Excel sheet with like different ratios tell me? What does it mean about my gut if you're saying, oh, like Bacteroides fragilis is represented at 0.23% of all bacteria in the sample? So the problem, and then here the problem is, and that's also where I'm was like dismissing ground truth, because many labs and many analysis and interpretation of gut microbiome data, also by D2C companies, sometimes very popular ones, is done with like standard predefined reference ranges based on like percentile. So you say, okay, like everything above the 90th percentile is like a cutoff in this like classified as an outlier, or just as worse or just as bad like mean averages, so normal distributions, which are like very classical statistical approach to defining like reference ranges and cutoffs. The only problem is when you apply a certain distribution to a data set, you have to be sure that the data set also follows that distribution. Otherwise, you apply a model that doesn't reflect reality at all. And the problem with microbiome data is it is everything but like normal distributed. So, I mean, a normal distribution, most people have seen it or like heard about it in like the statistics 101 is like, you know, that bell curve. Microbiome data, and I'm speaking about like every single taxon, more like it's wild. Like sometimes you have taxa that have like that distribution, then you have like some that like fluorides. It's the whole circus, but none of it is like normally distributed. So using the wrong statistical approach to the data is very problematic because you become numbers back that, of course, both doctors and end users, like the consumer, readily accept. But how did you came up with these numbers is the big question. And do these numbers actually reflect what's going on in your gut? So, and this is where we, in the end, like really focused on to make sure that both the testing in the first place is accurate, but then also the interpretation we run in data actually reflects the state of the system.
Yeah.
And that's where that real magic comes in.
Yeah, it explains the choice of your partners and why the statistics and the mathematics were so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's
Okay.
also like very, it becomes like just a beautiful endeavor and discovery process.
I can imagine. I mean, like I think, you know, when wearables first came out, it was like the curtain was pulled back on the fact that you could start gathering information about your body, and that and could assign meaning and could make changes. And this is like
Understanding the meaning is exactly where it breaks down mostly, you know?
right. Right. And then this is the most personal example that I've heard of. And then also, therefore, the most impactful. So I think it's exciting me a lot. And I'm really happy that you're building quickly in this space. So one of the things that we did leading up to the podcast is we did a few posts on Instagram and LinkedIn to ask there's a large collective network of women what questions that they would be curious to ask about the microbiome. What was funny is in the questions that came out of the ask, everyone pointed back to the gut. They didn't say microbiome. So I think that is definitely one separation education point that hopefully can come out of this podcast. The first question was, the muscle is one of the strongest predictors of healthy aging. So where does the microbiome fit into the equation of, I guess, muscle building, muscle preservation, healthy muscle function?
Yeah. And I mean, of course, like, especially like important for women where like muscle loss, sarcopenia, and also really like bone density and increased frailty is
Sure.
like one of the largest risks with aging. And I mean, short answer, the impact is huge. So your microbiome supports all the metabolic and signaling systems that help your body produce energy to exercise, regulate glucose, and also preserve muscle. Starting maybe with the metabolism side first. So through like short chain fatty acid production, which are like certain like compounds, let's put it like that, that are produced by your microbiome from food, and also through bile acid signaling. On one hand, the microbiome can basically affect heat production in brown fat by the farnesoid X receptor, and also it influences AMPK, which is basically like the energy sensor or the thermostat of your cells, and tells your cells to like either like produce more energy or like regulate down energy. So first of all, giving you all the energy you need to like actually exercise and put in the work. Also, you mentioned as mentioned, your microbiome supports glucose homeostasis. So it helps how readily your muscle cells are able to like get the glucose into the cells, and also help lower insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is like the lead driver of muscle atrophy. So speaking about muscle preservation. And also the short chain fatty acids that I mentioned that are produced by microbiome stimulate muscle protein synthesis, because free fatty acid receptors that are targeted by these CFAs trigger a cascade that downstream activate mammalian target of rapamycin or mTOR, which is basically like the primary driver of muscle protein synthesis. So what causes your body to build up new muscle proteins. And then also, and especially like with aging, butyrate, which is like one of the like main three short chain fatty acids, acts as a histone deacetylase inhibitor, meaning it prevents a like certain gene to be transcribed that causes muscle wasting with age. And in that way, basically directly helps your body to preserve more muscle while you're getting older.
It becomes like a gatekeeper for this gene.
Yeah, or like basically like the one deciding which pathway is getting switched on or off, and getting transcribed. And in that way, really, in a very direct way, help you also to, on one hand, like build up muscle mass, but also then to preserve that muscle mass when the hormonal support with aging just breaks down. Because of course, like that is like the number one driver of sarcopenia, that like the hormonal background noise with testosterone and estrogen gets like lower and lower while we're aging. And then your microbiome has to step up more and more to to make sure that what you build up is also preserved into old age.
That was a very complete answer, and you did summarize it at the beginning that it has a lot to do with it. So that's the yes, it definitely impacts maintaining, preserving, building muscle. And then the second, and this is where the question points back to the gut, but I'm just going to reframe it to the microbiome, because this is what we're talking about, has to do with inflammation. So how much of inflammation starts or is impacted by the microbiome is maybe a better way to frame that.
Sure. I mean, to not confuse the listeners anymore as necessary, but I mean, you can definitely speak about the gut as an ecosystem consisting of the
Microbiome,
so the gut bacteria, so the bacteria, bios, and fungi living inside that ecosystem, but also like the gut lining, the cells, the substance secreted by like the gut tissue itself, and yet also again interact with the creatures living inside the ecosystem. You can think about it like as a forest, and then as the insects and all the animals living inside that forest. That's basically how the microbiome functions, how everything is interconnected with each other.
That's
so
very visual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But from like the question of like inflammation, I think probably also what the listeners refer to is like not the inflammation that you get when you have like an infection or whatever, your immune system stepping up to kick out the intruder, but more like systemic inflammation, chronic inflammation. Yeah. And here I said it like in the very beginning, the gut is on the one hand both a barrier, so making sure that only the right stuff enters your system, your bloodstream, and also training ground for the immune system. So microbiome imbalance can affect systemic inflammation through both routes. Starting with like the barrier first, yeah? You have like the gut lining that normally prevents material from inside the gut entering the bloodstream. As we, of course, have to like take up certain substances from the food we digest. This barrier is like not 100% like proof, but we have like small openings called the so-called tight junctions. And these tight junctions are basically like, it's like really just like an opening in the cell. And there you have like certain proteins like zonulin, occludin, and claudin that basically like are like gatekeepers for making sure only the right stuff gets through. The problem is also these tight junction proteins are stimulated by short chain fatty acids that are again produced by microbiome. So when your microbiome becomes imbalanced, is less able to produce these beneficial short chain fatty acids, these junctions become more and more permeable. And that also then causes that certain bacterial content may enter the bloodstream. And what you have to know is like, basically like our immune system has like markers to make sure to discern our own human cells from like intruder cells, for example. Yeah. And normally like bacteria in their cell walls, they carry something called PAMs, so pathogen associated molecular patterns. For bacteria, these are lipopolysaccharides. And these like little markers are basically what the immune system reacts to. And what suddenly happens when your tight junctions become leaky and all that saccharides get into your bloodstream, your system is, oh, alarm, alarm. Yeah, there's like intruders in your bloodstream. So it upregulates your immune system, and that causes low-grade systemic inflammation. It can, for some people, then resemble as like strange food allergies. You have people who ate like a certain food compound for years, and suddenly, sometimes like after a very stressful time or after infection, I figure out, oh, they suddenly like develop an allergy or like have some kind of strange intolerance against it, or especially like prevalent for women, get histamine issues. Or like some form of like autoimmune complication. And that is then, or can be mediated to some effect by like just the wrong material leaking into your bloodstream because these tight junctions became too permeable and not doing their job of gatekeeping correctly anymore. And then on the other side, I mean, this is like the trigger, but of course, like you can decide if you want to be triggered.
Sure.
Okay, maybe too far of a philosophical tangent, but anyways. But yeah, as mentioned, your gut also trains the immune system. So your microbes help to shape these like T cells, which like very important cells of your immune system, and especially like regulatory T cells that basically teach your body to not to overreact to harmless substances. So also when your microbiome doesn't stops doing its job anymore because it's getting unbalanced, these functions break down, and suddenly your immune system is starting to attack things that it doesn't need to worry about, or even like starting to attack your own cells. So yeah, in the end, it's again a very foundational influence that it exerts.
I feel like both of these answers could be like a mini masterclass. So thank you very much.
We can follow up with.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's in your planning for the next 12 to 18 months at Precision Microbiome?
Yeah. I mean, so with our Precision Biome, of course, we are like continuing to develop our algorithms further, get more data and do more research. With Ravān, it's just like increasing our customer size. We are launching like basically the next version in October, both in Europe and US. So yeah, I mean, that is just like, I would say, classical go-to-market and scaling, like the standard business stuff. But
Busy
always,
time. Yeah.
yeah, but always, and that is more like where like the philosopher, artist, creative in me comes through, always like thinking about how can we improve the product? How can we improve the process? How can we really shape belonging and community around the product? So that
Yeah.
people not just feel that they're using that microbiome optimization program, whatever, that like cold technical process, but really how can we make it also feel alive from a customer experience side? How can we make it artistic? How can we make it memorable and touching in a personal way?
I mean, people are on a journey to improve themselves, right? And you definitely don't want to feel alone on that journey. So knowing that other people have been there or are going through is always a comforting thing, and figuring out a way to connect them is, I think, that community part of the business is the trickiest but the most fulfilling. So last question. At the collective, we love to spotlight other women doing great work. Is there a woman in your network who you'd like to amplify? Who is she and what is she doing?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the advisors to our company and also a personal mentor is Dr. Andrea Gartenbach. She is just an amazing human being, like one of the leading physicians in longevity and in lifestyle medicine globally, like the mind behind the performance and longevity protocols of the top like German stock company CEOs, like up to Saudi royals and clients like high net worth clients all around the world. And I think, I mean, she is amazing because she, on one hand, Andrea is like very, very clear, very like organized, very, very structured, but also just like brings that radiant, vibrant personality. So that energy
Mhm.
that she helps to instill in their clients with like getting them on track with the protocols, also something that she definitely embodies as a person, and
Mhm.
one that also the speaker just is able to light up the room and lift people up. And I think that's a feed that is like so important and at the same time so rare, just like enabling people to instill their belief in themselves again,
Yeah.
which is, I think, like the most important or like the most impressive quality besides all the fascinating, amazing, impressive work that she does anyways, while juggling family and everything and jetting through 5 different continents and speaking at all the events at the same time. So, but generally, I would say like I have the privilege of, I think, almost having like more women than men in my network who are like leading, building, creating, and just like pushing things forward, leading the way, forging out the
Mhm.
path. So I'm also very happy to like share a full list after the podcast with you, and maybe you find your next guest in.
Absolutely.
So many fascinating women that we could make like a podcast episode just speaking about
On
them.
the women.
But maybe another one is, I mean, I don't know her personally, Sham Jaff, but she's like an independent journalist who curates
Mhm.
and writes the What Happened Last Week newsletter. And I think, I mean, that's the only newsletter and also like just news I consume in general. And because she manages in like a time that is loaded like with populism, with like media sensationalism, to provide a super reflected, balanced, and also like multifaceted picture of global events and geopolitics in a time where almost nobody's able to do that anymore. So yeah, if you don't know her,
No, I'm
look at
checking
the
this
newsletter.
out.
Support it. It's my single source of news that I consume, and I like it a lot.
I'm very happy for this recommendation, because for all of the reasons you just listed about what's going on in our media, that's really hard to cut through at the moment. And I also I find like there's a bit of a red line that's woven through our conversation, and you ended with it and we began with it, and that's the energy piece. The energy on so many levels is what brought you to this kind of work, and it continues to connect you to people through it. So I think that's really cool to hear in all of its dimensions. So thank you so much for this very, very informative conversation. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many.
Sure, you're welcome. And I think that's exactly the thing. I mean, like the world is complex, it's fast, it's sometimes difficult to navigate and ambiguous. And sometimes like all that complexity makes us become fearful. But I think when we really lean into complexity, when we really lean into that potential with, as mentioned, with the curiosity and also with
Curiosity.
the
Yeah.
amazement of being like, okay, maybe I never figure it out to 100%, but just like bearing witness to it is such a pleasure and privilege. I think that where life itself really becomes alive and fascinating and wonderful, and also what I think makes life worthwhile in the end, like bearing witness to the magnificent spectacle that we somehow are able to participate in.
I don't think I've ever had such a poetic end to a podcast. Thank you, Moritz.
Thank you so much for the invite. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. If today sparked a new idea, helped shift your thinking, or gave you something to take forward, share it, rate the show, or drop us a message. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until then, keep connecting the dots that matter.